was introduced to the church through a friend of mine, Andy, which I'll hopefully go on to explain how we became acquainted. I'm going to share my testimony with you guys because it was actually 3 years ago when a Christian brother actually told me his story and told me his story about his relationship with Jesus, how he came to Jesus and how he turned his life around. And there was something that really just connected with me and where I was at in my life, and it was what I needed to hear. And that was when I realised that God has always been there with me. He was there on a journey with me. I didn't accept him into my life. And that's why there were so many things that were happening to me which I couldn't make sense of. So I came to England a couple of years ago. Before that, my story and my journey started when I left Australia. I was studying at the time, I was studying chemical engineering, 2 years into a degree. I wasn't too happy with my situation. I wasn't happy where my life was at. And some things happened, a drastic change happened in my life, and it led me to book a flight and leave to go to Canada. So I packed up everything I had, all my possessions, put them in a bag, and I told Mum 3 days later, I said, I'm off out of the country. She said, oh, this is a bit strange. She said, where are you off to? And I said, I'm going to Canada, I don't know how long for. I'm allowed there for a year and I'll see what happens and we'll make up the rest as it goes. So I flew to Vancouver and arrived there, didn't have a job, didn't have a place to stay. I had a backpack on my back and clothes in there and a little bit of money in my pocket, and I made up the rest in there. Went into a backpacker's lodge and, figured it out. Got a couple of nights accommodation and then made my way into the mountains, eventually settled in accommodation and work. I stayed in Canada for about a year working, bouncing around, seeing the country, seeing what I had to offer and meeting amazing people and hearing people's journeys. I realised that there was a bit more to life and people's stories than I was once exposed to. I only knew the people I grew up around, my family, and what I'd heard of the world outside of my own understanding was very limited. And I started to see and experience new things. So my journey then, after a year in Canada, brought me to England. I started working in the UK after arriving shortly. Funds started to diminish, and you can only go so long on a holiday and a working holiday before there has to be some sort of income coming in again. So I started to jump into work. I met a few people. I was working for a charity involved with a few different industries, the National Deaf Children's Society, RNIB. You guys are probably familiar with them. And when we were doing fundraising, this is where I suppose I was at one point in my life where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was quite an interesting kind of turning point for me. I was doing all this amazing work, fundraising, and we were giving children who were born deaf or hard of hearing the chance to hear for the first time with cochlear implants. The reactions on these children's faces, unreal. And it was when I was doing this that I'd actually meet people. You'd be out speaking to strangers in shopping centres or in the street, and we met so many people, I did personally, met so many Christians, and they'd come up to me and they'd hand me leaflets or they'd hand me scripture. And it was so strange because being in that kind of position, you get so much marketing material, literature from other people that it would be almost disposable. But there was something that stood out with words from God that I'd read and I'd glimpse over it, and they would just sit with me, and I'd go, I can't disregard that. I had to keep it. And I've got a folder at home somewhere with all these amazing scriptures in that I still haven't read to this day, but as I go through my Bible, things, I read that, or somebody mentioned that to me, or there was a time when a religious teacher that passed by told me a story about, that is come back into my life. And, that's when my journey first started. It was an inkling, it was the seed that was planted. I thought, okay, maybe there's more to this. My journey with God, I hadn't grown up in a Christian family. My parents are they don't have a religion, they don't have a faith, from my understanding. I've been away from my parents for a long time now. Not for any reason that I don't get on with them, it's just I was on my own spiritual journey. And anyway, I'm getting a bit off the story, but I jumped into this job opportunity. It was in Aston, and on the first day on the job, there was a bit of an interesting story how I got in the role. I'd been applying for jobs after COVID, everyone had been made redundant, and I was just sick and bothered of people not accepting me into a job opportunity. And I thought, you know what, I'm an Australian in a foreign country. I said, what's so boring about me? Why won't anybody take me? So I walked down to this place, And I walked in and I said, listen, I said, I've got all the experience you guys are advertising online for. I rang you guys 3 times after speaking. I sat down with the manager. I said, listen, I can do what you're asking people to do. Are you going to give me a chance or not? And they said, well, we kind of like how you come across and you seem like you can walk the walk and talk the talk. We'll give you a shot. Here's the keys. You're in the van tomorrow and you're off you go. So this is where my journey really started. I went to this first job. It was at the Marigold, and I was working away. It was cleaning this wedding venue. We were doing all the jet washing and the gutter cleaning and whatnot at the time. And the wedding venue groundskeeper, who was the head maintenance guy, came up to me and introduced himself. He said, if you need anything, I'm here all day. And we were chatting away. A lovely guy, his name was Kumar. And at the end of the day, he said, are you by any chance religious? Are you a Christian man? I said, no, I don't really have a faith at the time. I said, my parents aren't, and I said, I've never really understood it. I said, but he said, have you ever been interested? And I said, you know what, there is something that I've always thought there is more to it. And I never had an answer for it. And he said, well, listen, he said, don't feel obliged to anything. He said, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with my number. And he said, I'm going to leave you with my contact details and this book. He gave me this book at the time, which was called Acres of Diamonds. It had scripture in it. And he said, if you ever feel like there's a calling for you to ever come and explore that or come to a church, he said, I want to be the one who guides you down that journey. And it sat with me for weeks. I went home and I thought, every day I'd finish work and then, you get on the day-to-day life, you come home for dinner, and then it would just pop in my mind. I'm like, Kumar, that book that was sitting on the kitchen counter, it was just there still. And I thought, I've got to pursue that. I said, there's something there that I don't have the answer to. And the whole journey I've been on for the last however many years I've left Australia, I still didn't have the answers. And there was this empty void inside of me that was like, what is there? There's something I don't know, and I've got to pursue this. So I went to church. It was actually Winners Chapel over in Perry Barr. Some of you may know it. It was a brilliant church. Got me involved. It got me, actually, I found Jesus. And from then, I started to develop and build a relationship with Jesus. And I started to understand how God had been working in my life since I left Australia. And I started to see more of the work of God when I started to build this relationship with him and understand how he was working through my life. Because so many times people would say, oh, I'm a Christian, I speak to God and God speaks to me. I understand that they pray. But I was thinking, there's no one in my room speaking to me, or like this speaker in the corner of the room standing there actually communicating me. It was quite hard for me to grasp and understand. Nobody had really broken it down to me, how it all works. And I think from my point of view, not having somebody teach me the way through my life, I was trying to piece it all together, and my education with Christ was very limited because it was all just what I'd heard here or what people had explained to me. I didn't know what was what. So as I started to learn and understand and educate myself, and God started to teach me, I started to see his work, and I started to see him working through me and helping others. And I was actually explaining to a few of you guys last week, there was a particular instance where I was on a journey. I was actually on an Alpha course at Gas Street, and actually God placed me in the circumstance of one of my old acquainted friends. And we hadn't spoken in 2 years. 2 years since we'd actually been acquainted and worked together when I first come to the UK. And he rang me and he said, I think I've just saw you at Birmingham New Street. And I said, oh, have you? Okay. I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, well listen, how about I just come and see you? And I thought, it's really strange. He's seen me walk down the steps of Birmingham New Street. We haven't spoken in the last 2 years. Obviously, he's still got my number from when we were working in the office together. Something seemed a little bit off. And I thought, oh, okay, that's strange. I'm going to just go with it and see what it is. And my mate Danny at the time, he'd come over and he said, oh, hey York, it's great to see you. How's things? And I said, things are really good for me. He said, what are you doing all dressed up in town at 7:30 at night? I said, well, I'm actually off to church. I'm doing an Alpha course. And he said, wow, that's amazing. He said, I didn't know you were Christian. We'd never spoken about it. The whole time we worked together, he'd never mentioned his faith. And I wasn't a Christian at the time. And he said, that's so strange. He said, I've called you because there's something that's happened. He said, there was a time when we worked together, which you told me about, something that happened in your past. I used to be a gambler. I used to have a problem with gambling. I used to do a lot of things which I'm not proud of. But I'd shared this story with Danny in confidence. And he said, there's something I need to tell you. He said, me and my partner are getting married. He said, we're short on finances. He said, I work for the NHS in finance. And there's a lot of money, there's a lot of funds we have access to. And he said, no one would ever know. He said, I took £3,000 from the till tonight. And I said, I was going to go to the casino, I was going to gamble that, and he was going to then, whatever he kept, whatever he made in a profit, he was going to keep and put that towards the wedding and take the rest back, and hopefully no one knew. He said, that was the plan at least. He said, I've gone to the casino and I've lost it all. And I said, Denny, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I've been there. I've been in the same situation as you, and it's heartbreaking. The only thing is, it's not your money to lose. And he was sitting there and he was going, I don't know what to do, York, I don't know what the right thing to do is. And I said, Denny, you know what the right thing to do is. You're just hoping that someone's going to tell you something else. And he sat there and he said, you know what, I'm just really glad I actually called you. I'm really glad that I actually spoke with you. It's so strange how you were the first person that popped into my mind when it happened. I said, it is strange. I said, you know what, I think you should come along to church with me. I said, from what I know, and if you used to be a Christian or you've fallen out with your fellowship or your relationship with God isn't there anymore, I said, there's a reason He's placed you in my presence today. I said, you should come to Gastry with me. You should come to the Alpha Course and you should be there. And maybe that will re-spark your relationship with God and actually help you what's going on in your life right now. Anyway, fast track, 4 months after that situation, Denny had made the right decision. He'd gone back into work the next day. He'd confessed what he did. And you know what, he called me 4 months after the whole situation. He sent me photos. He said, him and his partner were married now. He sent me the photos of the wedding. He said, you know what, thank you so much. He said, you helped me that day make that decision and make the right decision going forward. And, I look back on that and I think God put Denny in that situation and put me there to reaffirm His guidance and His message in my life. When that happened and I saw Him do that, I thought, you know what, wow, that's so powerful for me. It just reaffirmed my belief, and it gave me the opportunity to see how one event can either turn somebody's life around or it can completely ruin it. And Denny had a choice that day, and when I saw that happen and I saw the outcome of it, it just reaffirmed everything of that night. I was on the way to an Alpha Course, my faith in God was growing, and I was on a journey which it was a nail in the coffin for me. And ever since then, like I say, my understanding, my faith has been growing. I'm still probably not as educated on the word as I should be, but that's why I'm here. I'm here to continually grow and share my story. And there's so many instances where God has reaffirmed Himself to me, and some people have different relationships with God, but God works through me and He constantly shows me He's there, guiding people and helping people. And I think that's the most important thing for me. And every day I smile when I see Him work at work. And that's what makes me happy as a Christian, when I see Him working and I see Him doing, He's blessing people's lives and continue to bless people. And that's the most important thing for me. So hopefully sharing this helps some of you guys, because I know as a Christian, some of you are born into it. Some of you, it's confusing, or if you're on a journey like me. And some of you have just been a Christian so long that maybe it's refreshing, as I understand, to hear things like this. But that's my story. If you have any questions, you can ask me. But I don't really know much more to say. I didn't plan too much what to say, but that's it anyway. Thank you.